Hello everyone. I'm wanting to share really my experience in changing the fuel pump. This is a 1996 Ford Ranger, has a four-cylinder engine, and what I did recently was change the fuel pump, the filler neck, and the fuel filter. And I just wanted to share that experience and maybe help someone else out who may be considering doing it themselves as well. So one thing I do want to say is I'm not a mechanic. Just this is shade tree mechanic, I guess, and I'm just sharing my experience. So follow this at your own risk. But it's a pretty easy job. Uh, if you're not comfortable with anything, don't do it. Get a mechanic. But first thing you want to do is think safety because gas fumes are very, very dangerous. So disconnect your negative battery post, just to reduce the odds of there being some sort of spark. Another thing we did when we did this is we used plastic wrap and rubber bands to cover open fuel tank when we were not doing work on it and it was still open. Always leave the gas cap on the filler neck. Just things like that to reduce any risk of a fire or any sort of explosion, I guess. All kidding aside, it's a very dangerous. Use caution. So just going through the steps. The fuel tank filler neck. This is this is an example of that right here. Kind of a snapshot of what that looks like. Your gas cap would go here on this end, and this part goes down inside the gas tank. So I had to replace that because it rotted right here where you see this clamp. This right here is the fuel pump assembly, and the reason I went ahead and replaced this, I had the bed off, and I replaced this because the float had actually gone bad and my gas tank was reading empty. So the original float that was in there filled up with fuel and just hung down at the bottom, which shows empty on this sending unit. Another two things to note on this assembly kit is it comes with two clips and a new gasket. The gasket that came with it for some reason wouldn't fit in. I'll kind of cover that a little bit. But keep in mind there are two different types of clips to put your hoses back on. These little connectors. And even though they're probably greasy and black, you can't tell the difference. One is black and one is white, and keep note of the differences. This is the fuel filter for a four-cylinder engine, and the reason that I changed it, I don't know if I needed to change it, but since I was going to have everything disconnected as far as the fuel goes, I went ahead and replaced the fuel filter, and I'll talk about that too. Parts I needed in addition to those parts I just showed you. This is a Autocraft quick disconnect tool set. You may not need this. Just look on your fuel lines, you'll see it. But this is for the fuel filter replacement. There was a connector I could not get off, and I had to go to a parts store and get this. It was like $3. I used this top one right here. Fits over top of the fuel line and clips right off. There are other videos out there on the internet to show you how to do that. Highly recommended. I'm not a commercial for PB Blaster, but this stuff really works. So I'll cover when to use this and some other areas you might want to think about while you're doing it. So the first thing you do is bed removal. So to get to everything in this project, the easiest thing I found to do was just to remove the bed. So in these arrows right here, there are 6 bolts that hold this is a regular cab Ranger pickup, 4-cylinder, kind of your standard little pickup. It has 6 bolts holding the bed on. I have those outlined here. I do recommend the night before or 20 minutes before or something, spray these things with some PB Blaster just to loosen them up, because this is a 96 Ranger. Obviously these bolts may have been in there since it was manufactured, and they're a little tough to come out. I did have to use a torque wrench or a torque socket driver. It's just a little bit longer than your standard one to get those out. They came out fairly easy, and I think it was the first time they'd ever come out. So the second thing you do is to take the bed off is to right up underneath the bumper right here, you want to disconnect the tail lights and the plate light. And it's just a simple connection. You don't have to take the wiring off or anything like that. Just disconnect the little clips up underneath there. The third thing is take the 3 screws off holding the filler neck. This is right here at your gas cap. There's 3 screws that hold this on. So take those off. And really, once you're ready to remove the bed, just take off the gas cap right here and shove the filler neck down in the hole because it's a pretty flexible hose. Um, Lastly, the thing you need to do to take the bed off is to remove the mud flaps if you have those, because one side of the mud flaps is connected to the frame up here on the left-hand side here. Alright, so once you have the bed off, and we did this with just 2 guys, and we're not big guys, so I did take the tailgate off. But you just lift it. It's pretty light, really. Might want to wear gloves. It can be the metal may cut you. We were each holding it on the fender well on the side, and it really lifted right up and came right off. And putting it back on was just as simple. So it's easier than I thought it would be. The parts that we were working on. This is the filler neck, and what had happened here is the filler neck rotted right here. This is the assembly where the fuel pump goes down into the fuel tank, and obviously it's this gas cap and some other things. So we did use plastic wrap. Like when we took the filler neck off, we put plastic wrap on the hole right here while we were working on some other things because it was in the way. So anytime we had something open, we just put plastic wrap on it and rubber bands to cover the hole, because gas fumes are very dangerous. Oh, and by the way, like I said, disconnect your battery post before you do any of this stuff. This is a closer look. So the fuel assembly mechanism, I hope you guys can see all this, but this is the fuel, it's like a hanging, I forget what they call it, hanging assembly, and it goes down into this section. This little white screw plastic nut, if you will, came off by hand. I think we did have to just touch it a couple of times with a light hammer, rubber hammer, to get it off there. I think it's what we used. I can't remember now. And this is the part I showed you earlier about the filler neck. That's this right here, this whole assembly. Believe it or not, the filler neck actually costs more than the fuel pump assembly. It's crazy. But these go on fairly well. Here's a snapshot. Well, let me go back. So you remove this filler neck there's just a clamp right here at the bottom. You unscrew the clamp, it pulls right off. You put you get your new assembly, put it on there. It takes a little. You gotta work it a little bit to get it on there, but then just tighten in your clamp and you're done with that. The way this works, you got to unhook these 2 hoses, and there's a little clips right in here, and these are those 2 replacement clips I was telling you about. There's a black one and a white one. I don't want to say which one is which because I can't remember, but don't mix them up. You may have to wipe grease off of it to see the color of each clip. Make sure you put the right clip back in the right fuel line. So you remove those, unscrew the white piece here. It's normal righty-tighty, lefty-loosey kind of thing. And pull out your fuel pump assembly. And just get your gasket replacement here, put it down, and then put your new fuel pump assembly in there. It's pretty simple. So that's one of the reasons why I want to share this. This is definitely something you can do with right precautions. This is what it looks like. So that you can see here we have the new filler neck hose on, gas cap is on there to keep fumes down. We had already replaced at this point the fuel pump assembly and made sure we got the hoses back together appropriately and plugged the electrical connection back up. That's kind of what that looks like. While we had the bed off, just something to think about. The spare tire the assembly that holds the spare tire underneath the bottom of this truck, if you're like me, I don't think I'd ever had mine even off. So while I had it, I sprayed it with some PB Blaster, loosened everything up. So the spare will drop pretty easy now. I also shot some PB Blaster down into the holes for the bolts to put the bed back on, and cleaned the bolts before I put them in the hole. So I cleaned the bolts up using PB Blaster too. Used a wire brush to clean them off. So just some things to think about while you have the bed off your truck and whatever else other work you may need to do. This is the location for the fuel filter. So the fuel filter is underneath the driver's side. There's the frame. So if you climb up underneath here, unless you have a lift and you're got all that cool stuff, I don't. You just climb up underneath here, and the fuel filter sets on the other side of the frame. You can't miss it. It's pretty big. I'd say this thing is maybe a little bit fatter than like a a can of soda, but shorter. So it's pretty big. And the picture you're looking at here is for a four-cylinder engine. I think the V6 is maybe a bit different. And this is the point where you'll need to use that clip, the quick connect. And what's weird about ours is one side had the clip like you saw on the fuel pump assembly, and then the other side had the clip where I had to reuse this. So you may see a mix of things. But while you have the tank pressure, fuel, and all that done, hey, why not change to the fuel filter while you're at it? It takes 5 minutes. Once complete, turn the ignition on and off. It's not starting it. You're not trying to start it. You're just turning the ignition to the on position. This will engage the fuel pump, and you'll hear it running in the back because you don't have the bed on yet. So let it run. It'll run for just a few seconds. Turn it off. Repeat that until you hear it run. What you're doing is you're getting fuel back into the system because you've really taken the filter off and everything. You've kind of purged it almost. So this is you're getting fuel back into the system. And mine started right up. It was one of those deals that everything came out great. So I got the engine started. I let it run for a while. I checked for leaks around the everywhere, really, where I did any kind of work. So everything turned out okay. And so for you, job done. Put that truck back together because it is naked. So I hope you find this helpful, and more to come. Thanks.